Hi Sharon, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to have a chat about some did you know topics that are specifically around the bidding industry and some things that businesses new to bidding might not know about. But first, tell me a little bit about you. How did we come to work together?
So we've probably known each other a couple of years now. I first was in contact with you through a client, and we worked on a bid. And since then, I've actually used you with other clients through my own business because we have had a really good success rate, 100%, and
100%.
therefore 100%. And we've worked really well together. And I've worked in bids for a long time now, not as a bid writer, but as part of the health and safety team or part of the sort of the lead team. And you know when you get on with somebody and you're actually able to deliver on what you need to do, and that's where we got to.
Was that time that we went to Barton Marina for lunch and it was really, really windy?
Yeah, tried to get a selfie.
We tried to get a selfie and we just had like the maddest hair.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does exist.
It does exist.
Yeah, not very flattering, but it does exist. So one question I've got is, how do you currently find out who holds a contract?
So did you know there's a little thing called the Freedom of Information Act? And what that means is every public contract is in the public view. So anybody can email a local authority procurement team and ask for information around that tender. So who's the supplier? What's the contract value? How are they performing? And that information can be really useful if you're planning ahead and you're not sure whether you want to go for that contract, whether you want to bid for it, but you can get that information from the procurement team and then make an informed decision. So, for example, if the incumbent is performing really, really well, there might not be the appetite to change, but it's just really useful if you're planning ahead and looking ahead at what you want to bid for. And not all companies do that, and they should do that because it's a really good strategy to work out whether you want to go for something in the future or not.
Yeah, and that's predominantly, is only public sector.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think from my point of view, I work a lot more in the private sector. There is that knowledge around as to who probably is the incumbent, but the information around contract value and that, obviously sometimes you're probably waiting until the contract comes through for tender.
Yes.
As much as
it's a bit more competitive in that sense in the private sector, isn't it? A bit more secretive. Yeah. Everything that's in the public sector has to be in the public eye, but not many businesses actually know that you can ask for that information.
Yeah,
you're not necessarily going to get it quickly, so don't email and ask for it if you need it the week before. I think they have to respond within about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But I've tested it myself, and the information that you get is pretty comprehensive. Question for you, Sharon. How does a business stay on top of industry trends?
So, did you know that to stay on top of industry trends, one of the things I always look at is networking, and how you do that, whether that be face-to-face, whether it be through social media, face-to-face, attending conferences, although a lot of those actually can be online now as well. So really just keeping up to date with what's coming up, looking at things like industry newsletters from either through clients or existing clients, different things that are going on in the industrial world, the type of activities obviously that you're involved in. So how can I manage risks in bid writing?
So did you know there's a few different things that you can do that will help you manage the risk in bid writing? One of the first things that you should do is have a robust no-bid process. So what we want to do before we put all of that resource into producing a winning submission is actually look at that opportunity in more depth. Is it commercially viable? Can we actually deliver what the buyer is looking for? Have we looked at the terms and conditions and the contract? What are the risks in there? We need to look at those, because if we don't and we sign it, we don't know what kind of risks that we're signing up for, and there can be lots of things in the small print that are particularly dangerous. So we need to do that first.
Yeah. And I think also having a team, or dependent on how many people you can have and you've got within a business, but it's having the right team to pull that bid together, and making sure you've got the right level of expertise for the information that you're going to need.
Yeah.
And not necessarily for those people to write it, but to actually be able to get the information out of somebody's head to put on paper.
Yeah.
And then that's our job then to write that in a way that
Yeah.
answers the question.
And I always work back from the deadline. So whatever is the submission deadline, then work back through that process, because first of all, you need to do your due diligence at the beginning. So you've gone through, bid process, you've agreed to go ahead. So then you need to deconstruct the bid documents, understand the requirements, go through a storyboarding, answer planning session.
Yeah.
You're creating your first draft, you're having a mid-bid review. So all of those things, you've got to work back from the deadline to minimise that risk of the project falling off track.
I think that plan is really important, and I think also building some contingency into there so that you've got time to make any changes that you might think, actually, no, we've not answered that properly. Let's go back and really have a look at it.
Yeah, and having a kind of firmness in your approach, because what you don't want is major changes at the final review. So you've almost got to have that strength of character where you can say to the team, and somebody in that team might be more senior to you, that mid-bid review, this is your last opportunity for major changes. There are no major changes beyond that, because it would put the project under too much risk.
Yeah.
So Sharon, a question for you. How do you engage with the buyer through the bidding process?
So did you know that there are ways of doing that and ways of making sure that you stay within the confines of the bid process without stepping out of that? So obviously contact with a procurement team, being the only measure of contact that there should be through the whole of the bidding process. And that includes following from submission, any clarifications that come back to your business, to make sure that you are able to answer them quickly and that you get back as quickly as possible. Obviously, the buyer is interested, and those clarifications sort of need to be answered so that you don't scupper your chances, kind of thing, and lose out on time.
So timescale is key. Certainly post-submission, if that clarification comes in, it needs to be responded to promptly. So you need to make sure that you've got somebody monitoring the portal. Don't always necessarily rely on the notification email coming in.
Yeah.
But does that mean that I can't rock up to the procurement team with, a brown envelope and 12 Krispy Kreme donuts?
Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to work.
No,
and as much as the procurement team might like the 10 crispy donuts, no, it's in all seriousness,
that was tongue in cheek.
Or in all seriousness, yes, no, don't.
No. So, what would actually be the consequences if I did rock up with a brown envelope and 12 Krispy Kreme donuts? In all seriousness, it's not the done thing, and that would lead to absolute disqualification from the bid process, and you wouldn't be allowed to put a submission in.
Yeah.
So not advisable. You might be able to do that in a private sector bid, though. Maybe. Do you know? No.
Oh no.
Okay.
I think, to be honest, I think probably in the private sector, processes are in place, and I think. Dare I say more so. I don't have a lot of experience of public sector bidding, but certainly from a private sector, it's exactly as you've described, and it's not something that would be done.
Done thing.
Yeah. How could we use AI in bid writing?
So did you know there are different ways that you can use AI in bid writing? One of my favourite AI tools at the moment is a software that records transcript in meetings. So as a bid writer, you will have to interview subject matter experts to glean the information, the magic that's in their head that's going to help you craft that response. So historically, back in the day, you'd have that meeting either in person or face to face, and you would be writing notes. And then you take those notes away, you try and craft the response. But with AI, it records all of that. It will summarise your top actions, the key points, or give you the entire transcript. I find that enormously helpful in terms of when I'm writing a bid for a client. It saves me loads of time.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an age thing with me, because I sort of like pushed back on using AI and thinking I really don't need to get into this at this time of my life. But over the last 6 months or so, I've actually started to have a better look at what capabilities it's got in the way that it could support some of the work I do. And it's not about using the content from AI, but it's about using, like you say, meeting minutes and notes. That's a massive step forward in trying to sit there and make sure you've captured everything, and then you can't read your writing afterwards. So all of the things that we've sort of done before, I think then using AI to actually look at what the subject is that we're doing, using it as a research tool, seeing what comes back from that. Are there any pointers that we can think about what we include, how we include it, and then sort of doing what we've always done in actually writing the content from that bit of support.
Because one of the other things that I found it really useful for in terms of saving time is, in a bid, you'll know that quite often you've got word count restrictions or page limit restrictions, and you can spend hours trying to get that 700 words down into the 500 word limit. With an AI tool, you can put that complete response in, ask it to whittle it down to 500 words without actually losing any of the key messages. Now, you still have to check it because sometimes it will lose the key messages, but it's still that time to check and make sure is probably still quicker than the time it would have taken to work through every single sentence and pull out 200 words. So I think with any technology in any industry, anything that's new, you've got to lean into it and at least explore it. Because as you said, you get to a time in your life you think, oh no, I don't really want to do that. But I don't think that's a sound business decision. You might lean into it and it's not for you and it doesn't work. But I think you've at least got to explore that option. Can AI write a bid?
I'd say not at the moment. I don't think we're there yet.
I agree. I think we may well get there in, I don't know, I don't really want to put a time limit on it because it's
moving so fast.
Getting fast. But right now, no, it still does need human interaction. It can help at the front end with the research, some of the early first draft, but it's not got the capability of really sprinkling that magic, that evidence, that substance, that story that you need in a winning submission. So I think we've discussed, haven't we, today, lots of things that we can do in terms of making life a little bit easier. So having that no bid process, using the Freedom of Information Act to give you some insight and intel on who's the incumbent now and how are they doing. And obviously mixing in those circles where you've got thought leaders and membership organisations that specialise in this field to make sure that you're sort of keeping ahead of the game and leaning into AI to help you do some of that donkey work, as I like to call it, right at the beginning, because it'll save you time.
Definitely. I think that's one area that, for me, probably will become more of a focus at the start, to use it, as you say, to support the research at the beginning.
It is project management, really. And I think most people fail or feel overwhelmed because they don't really see the bigger picture in terms of everything that needs to be involved, but it's not as complex as we might initially think it is. Get a couple under your belt and you're away.
I think so. And I mean, it is an area that I actually quite enjoy, even though as a health and safety professional, I've been extremely fortunate to get involved in lots of different types of project work. And I think bid writing for me is being able to look at your business as to what you're doing, how well you're doing, and actually to be able to demonstrate to a potential client that this is us, and making sure that we've captured everything in that process.
So I really appreciate you taking the time to come down here, Sharon, today and have a chat with us about your experiences and sharing your knowledge on our Did You Know series. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So we're both on LinkedIn. We're going to get into this Did You Know series a little bit more. So if you want to learn more and you're keen to get involved, then come and see us on LinkedIn, or you can find my website or even my new YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Look forward to seeing you again.